Welcome to Margin of Thought, where we make space for the questions that matter. I'm your host, Priten, and together we'll explore questions that help us preserve what matters while navigating what's coming. Today I'm joined by Melvin D. Smith II, a digital learning specialist and computer science teacher at a private school in Maryland, where he also teaches a required 9th grade course called Digital Thinking. Melvin works at the intersection of technology and communication, helping young people think more clearly about digital footprint, online behavior, responsible AI use, and the habits they need to navigate a world saturated with technology. He brings a grounded perspective to the AI conversation because he is not treating AI as a standalone issue. In his view, the bigger challenge is whether schools are actually teaching students how to communicate, how to exercise judgment, and how to use technology with intention. From no phone policies to the limits of the digital native assumption, Melvin pushes us to ask what students really need before any new tool can be used well. Let's go.
Hello, my name is Melvin D. Smith II. I am currently teaching in Maryland at a private school. We are pre-K through 12. I have taught everything from pre-K up through the community college level. In the sciences, I've always incorporated technology by way of STEAM when I was teaching before where I am now at Garrison Forest. And now I am their digital learning specialist for 9th through 12th grade instructors. And I teach computer science and computer programming. And the class I'm most happy with is digital thinking, where all 9th graders that come to the school, they are required to take it. And literally what we do is discuss their digital footprint. Not only are we discussing their digital footprint, but I am also working with them on their soft skills in technology. So we are a Google school. I want them to be sure that they can effectively use a Google Doc, a Google Sheets, Google Slides. And we are currently undergoing a massive school-wide description, and I would say almost search of how we are going to be using artificial intelligence, because the students are using it in, it's not so much that that the adults need to catch up, but the adults need to catch up. And we want to be sure that the students understand that, one, we do realize that this is something, it's a tool, and it's a tool that they should be using. And well, as we're their instructors, we should be instructing them on how to use it effectively.
I really want to talk more about the structure of the class and how you approach it. But before we do that, can you share a little bit about the context of the school? So the kinds of things I'm wondering are one-to-one device programs and cell phone policies in particular. But just what role does tech play in the larger, then we'll stick to the 9 to 12 because I'm sure it differs. What does the high school look like in terms of the tech exposure during the school day?
In the middle school, they started off with the no cell phone policy. Their cell phones were in their lockers. Each of the students, they do have lockers. They do have devices. They do have laptops. They have the availability to use pads that they check out from the middle school digital learning specialist. In upper school, they are very highly encouraged to have their own device. Laptop doesn't matter as long as they have one. We do have PC based, we do have Apple based. We do now have a no phone policy. The students go to a centralized location, they put their phones in a lockbox, and they are there until they leave for the day. However, the students, of course, found that workaround in under a week, and they're now using their computers and their pads as their larger phones, which, it's created some frustration for some instructors. Others, it's just like, yeah, you don't need it out, put it away. And life goes on as usual. For those instructors that have embraced not necessarily that technology, but technology in general, it's not a problem. Yes, you're going to have the students that are a little bit confused because they're playing Tetris, but at the same time, that's incumbent on the instructor and more so on the parent to have them aware of, what are you doing? Let's focus. So the students have actually appreciated the no phone policy. I'm not sure if it's because it's one less thing for them to keep up with, but we have seen, and we're waiting to see what the uptick or hopeful uptick is in their availability to retain the material and focus. But that's something that we'll be looking at this summer, next summer, and particularly the summer after, just so that way we can have enough data. We're an upper school of a little less than 200. So it's a nice data set, but at the same time, it's not indicative of the entire population. But for us, the students in middle school are now coming to upper school realizing that, oh, you know what? I didn't need my phone. So it has made things a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'm sure that the students who get used to the no phone earlier are going to have an easier time in high school. I think getting it taken away later in schooling, it must be a little bit more difficult.
We have, it's not an honor guard. I forgot exactly what they're called, but they're a committee of students. And they're the ones who came up actually with the idea. It wasn't the adults. We had been looking to see what other schools in the surrounding area had been doing. And we were seeing that more and more of them were going to no phone policies. One of the great things about administration is that they actually went to the students and they said, this is what we're thinking about. What are your thoughts? And the students were like, okay, we use it because we're allowed. So if we not allowed, we won't use it. And then they move on about their lives. Like I said, I have in statistics had to ask students, it's like, okay, put your laptop down. We're going to use the desktop. And they're like, well, why? So you can see what I'm doing? I was like, exactly. So I can see what you're doing. And they were like, okay. And then we had our lesson and it was fine.
Do you all have any like the Go Guardian type softwares where you're monitoring the student, or you all have decided against that?
We do not. Some teachers are like, that would be nice. But we don't, because part of what it is that we're also looking to do is instill that we're building trust. We're going to trust that you're going to do this. So unless we need to, we won't. And a lot of the students respond to that. It's like, oh, okay, so now is my time with which to prove that I can do it. And they have.
And they all largely have their own devices, sounds like. So there's no school mandated app control or anything like that on the devices either.
The closest thing to that is through College Board, the AP. So when they're taking any of the AP exams or they're taking the SAT or the PSAT, it's their server that, locks down everything else. So, but other than that, yeah, no, we don't have anything.
And so then tell me a little bit about the class that you teach for ninth grade. Were you part of the decision to start it? Do you take it over? And how has the shift in the last few years?
Yeah, I took it over when I came into the job in 2020. So I was part of the COVID hire. I inherited the class. It was a semester-long class, and the upper school is on a 10-day cycle. So I would only see the students once every 10 days. Well, if the class falls on a day that we don't have class, it might be an entire month that I'd seen the students. And within that, it started off talking about the responsible use policy by the school, what you can, what we hope you don't do. And there weren't so much repercussions within that, but just the expectations of what it is that you're going to be using technology. This is how we're going to teach you to use technology. So let's use the technology in a positive way. From there, we would go through what it is that's out there and how students might be coerced into being on Instagram longer or being on Snapchat longer. And one of the ways that I now incorporate that lesson is literally to show them part of the non-disclosure policy that, Snapchat and Instagram is like, yeah, you're going to use our platform. We're not responsible for what's there. And guess what? Everybody can use your information that you put on there. So it's the students start to understand. It's like, oh, well, wait a minute. Is that what a cookie is? When somebody wants to use the site, or if I'm buying this and then I keep on getting all these things, it's like, well, yes. So they're piecing that all together. Right now, the students are dealing with, but I want them to write a script for a public service announcement. So they're going into their digital kindness. The school does have a week that we focus in on how can you be digitally kind? You're on the technology. What can you do to be positive while you are online? And I'm doing that because eventually I'm going to have them write a script for a podcast. teacher before me had them record it. I've talked to communications at our school, and why not put it out there on the waves? Our students have ideas. I would really want the general public to understand what these young women, because we are an all-girls school, what they're thinking. What do they want out of themselves? What do they want out of other people? What is it that they hope for from other people? So that's a very long response to what you were saying, what you were asking, in that we're now a year-long class because we literally cannot get everything in to a 10-day cycle that may or may not meet. And again, I really appreciate administration allowing me to do that because they understand that with technology, there's going to be changes, there are going to be shifts. And I get the opportunity with which to listen to the students, incorporate their questions, their concerns, their likes, their dislikes into a class. And we get to discuss those things where they're like, oh, okay, so this is how I'm using it now. How do I want to use it in the future? What's going to happen in my future if I use it like this right now? So that's wonderful. I love it.
You mentioned, so you do actual tech literacy in terms of the how to of using different tools. You talked about the Google Suite. You talked about helping them understand their usage of tools outside of the classroom. Tell me about what you all cover in terms of the larger picture of like civic discourse online, if you got a chance to do that and what that looks like.
Well, thanks to you, we just started that. We would go through the idea of the digital footprint and understanding that once you put something out there, you can delete it, but it doesn't leave what somebody else could see or has seen or has projected to somebody else. So that's really the big part of it, because the students do get to discuss civil discourse in a different class. And we have a wonderful history department that allows for open dialogue. And I know the instructors do go through it in detail about, we're going to have a discussion. Everybody's not going to approve. This is how we're going to have our discourse. Whether you approve or not, it's something that needs to be done. And what I get to do in the digital thinking class is then incorporate that into, all right, well, is this something you would say to somebody face to face? Because again, it's one of those things that is lost. And we are seeing, not only at my school, but in discussing with other teachers, that they're losing the ability, some students are losing the ability with which to have an effective disagreement. It's not even a dialogue because people will talk, but we want them to actually get into something that, it's not that it's negative, but it's something that is a point of contention. And I get to do that in the realm of, okay, you're typing this out, you're not seeing the person, but how do you effectively get the point across that, a period is a period. It doesn't mean that you're being aggressive
Yeah.
because students still think that they think in terms of texting. And that's actually one of the, I don't know how funny it is, but it is interesting in the fact that, because in my AP computer science class, when we talk about coding, we talk about dialogue within the code. The students are wondering, why do we use this punctuation? Why do we use that punctuation? And then they actually ask me, it's like, well, when I use it, when I'm texting, I don't use punctuation. And I was like, oh, okay. So how do you convey your emotion? And they were like, well, and then they go through and let me know how they're using it. And then that translates into the digital thinking class as far as, okay, how do you use this? How would you say this? So if you're feeling this way, go. What do you do? We actually have a class about dialogue through text. And it's always fun for me as I tell them, the old guy in the room, to see what they think of as aggressive in their comments and in their discussions online, because a text is different from an email, which is, and thankfully they understand those things. But at the same time, we're working to train them to be sure that they're not taking that text mentality into their descriptive mentality. Because whether it be in English or social studies, history, the teachers are working on that. And they're coming to me as like, could you help out? I was like, okay, yes, we will.
As you're talking, I'm thinking of the way youth today are talked about, especially in terms of tech. And there's often this digital natives argument, and it kind of goes both ways. Part of the argument is like they're used to the tech, they need to be exposed to the tech in as many ways as possible. We can't try to take it away. And then the other side is, well, the things that seem complicated to us are really simple and obvious to them. It sounds like both of those narratives, you're challenging both those narratives, right? Like you all are shifting away from giving, like, just providing them access to all technology, including their cell phones. But at the same time, you're noticing that you have to actually teach them skills that I think some people take for granted for like the youth that are currently entering high school. When you mentioned the cookies, that's when I was like, yeah, if you don't ever learn what a cookie is, it is difficult to know what's happening. But I think a lot of people would think that, oh, everybody knows what a cookie is now, like everybody's on the internet.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, they're like, "Oh, cookies," and they're like, "No, not those cookies." And like I said, some of them they understand it because, like, thankfully the parents have let them know, or they're on a site where, oh wait, allow cookies. If you're asking me if I have to allow something, why would I allow you to do it? And, again, thankfully, we've got the gambit. I mean, we've got students that don't allow any, and we have those that's like, oh yeah, I let them in all the time. And we're like, okay, all right. So let's find the happy medium of where it is. I'm fortunate enough to be at a school where parents do talk to their students about it. And whether the student follows through with it, of course, that's a completely different story. And as the educator of this class, that's one of the things I take pride in that, yes, I'm able to reiterate what it is that your parents have said. So I'm that other voice that's like, yeah, you've heard it 100 times. Here's the 101st time, and maybe it'll click. And then we discuss what it is that hopefully would have clicked earlier. And if it didn't, maybe it will now. But it's all intriguing and fascinating on how the students incorporate those things. Because again, we are fortunate enough at my school that we do reach out to alum and they in turn tell us, oh, yeah, if they're not using these skills, they're going to be at a disadvantage. And the biggest one right now, of course, is artificial intelligence. But before the artificial intelligence tsunami hit, it was all about how do you use the Google Suite? How do you present yourself if you can't be front face with somebody, even if it's not on Zoom? How are you going to present yourself? All right, well, teach the students because this is what I wish I had known. And we do have feedback, so we are able to incorporate that in. And the students know that. I'm saying this again and again, how fortunate I am that I could switch up my class based off of what I'm hearing and then also what the students are thinking. And they know. I mean, I've had alum come back who graduated, last year or the year before. They talked to the students about what they're doing in digital thinking. And they were like, Mr. Smith, we didn't do that. It's like, you didn't ask. You didn't ask, and it wasn't a big deal. And, now that it is, I'm doing it. So the students know that as things progress, the class will as well. And that's the advantage of it.
So 2020 to 2026 is a very interesting time in education technology as a whole. But a lot of the skill sets you're talking about are fundamental to all of these different shifts. I'm curious about what the differences are now. Like how has the class changed? Let's start post-pandemic. Let's start 2023, 2026. Like what shifts have you had to implement in your class to adapt to the shift in AI?
The biggest one is, do you understand what you're doing while using the technology? Because there's the school tech, and then there's the home tech, and then there's the interface in between. Knowing where it is that you can use something safely. If you're on a server at school, that's not going to be the same thing as being on a server at home. Or, oh, guess what? If you're buying something in the mall, it makes me literally laugh out loud because so many of the students now don't buy things in the mall. They'll go walk through the mall, but they're buying things online and looking at the difference between what it is that's being bought online and what you can get in person. I'm really drawing a blank on this person's name. A couple years ago, well, a lot of years ago, I show a video of a computer scientist that is able to write algorithms based off of what people buy. And a couple years ago, there was a 15-year-old who was pregnant, hadn't told her parents, but she's getting these coupons to buy things for a baby from Target. And they're like, well, wait a minute, how does that work? And I was like, okay, so let's look at that. When there's a history over a whole bunch of people buying things, and then it starts to click in their head that, oh, it's not just me and somebody else that's using this technology. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I've been able to work with students in understanding within that time frame. One, because I'm still learning the material. I was a science teacher that incorporated technology as opposed to the person that's like, okay, here's technology. So that's been the biggest shift. And then wanting to be sure that the students understand how to use those items now that I have more time with them. That's really when the students have been able to get more time with the Google Suite as opposed to, here's tech, here's our responsible use principles. Don't use tech in this way. So it's a lot more conversational, and I get to hear what the students and how the students are using the tech as opposed to please don't. This is what can happen.
What do those conversations look like right now around responsible use of AI tools outside of school? As all these surveys are coming out, you're starting to see that students themselves are actually fairly critical of using it for shortcuts. Now, obviously, it's not every single student. Lots of students are using it in various ways. But I'm curious, in your classroom, what is the general dialogue like about how they're thinking about using AI to replace some of their work outside of the classroom?
Most of them use it really for test question generation. They want to study, and this is a way that they will make flashcards. They'll type in questions that the teacher has asked or some of their homework questions, and then they'll have it generate more questions for them, and they study from that. That's the main way it's been used. There's the student here or there that we kind of have to look at as like, do you even know what this word means? You've never used it in class. We've never used it in class. So that's when it's like, okay, try again. We do have teachers that will have essays to be written in class, and it's only in class essays. So that way there's not the chance of it being used for an assessment. But then we also have teachers that will require the research to be done. That's a checkpoint. And then, what question can you come up with from the research that you've done? Put that in and since we're Google, we're using Gemini now. What does Gemini say? But we know the students outside are using, so we're getting the students to understand how to use it as a dialogue partner. As one person, actually, Mike Kent's said that we want to train them to use it as a sparring partner as opposed to a butler. That's really where we are right now in getting teachers on board to use it and play with it. We took before a student board that, okay, if you have a 0, absolute no, all the way up to a 4, full on use of. And the students have said, okay, this is a good idea, but when will we use that? How would we use that? And then do the teachers understand it? So that's where we are right now, is just making sure that the bases are covered.
I'm all over the country right now. And I think one of the other interesting splits that I'm noticing is that in some school districts, there's a lot of parents who are advocating for more tech integration, and they're worried about their students falling behind, and they want to integrate more AI training and exposure within schools. And then some schools, you're starting to notice like massive backlash against screens in school. They're pushing back against like students being screened all the time, and they want more of that, less time with devices. Where do generally your parents fall? Because again, it's not like you all have a mid-on strategy, and so I'm curious if you're noticing, both sides come at you.
Their middle ground as well. It's it's a boring answer, but it's true. We've got parents that are thankful that we're taking the steps to be careful about it, as opposed to just saying, no, you can't use it at all whatsoever, which is kind of what we were saying last year and the year before that. Now that it's been more prevalent, and now that we have literally the adults have more of a handle on what they want to use it for and how they can use it. It's just one of those things that you just really have to put it out there for people to be comfortable with it within a way that it's not a free for all. And that was really a lot of the big part of what we were going through in the upper school and with administration, is that we knew we wanted to use it. How are we going to use it? Who's going to use it? Who's going to instruct it? And then what is the end goal for the students in allowing them to use it because they need to. And as far as the parents go, when I explain to parents what the purpose of my course is, that again, it's only for ninth grade students. They're all for it because they, some of the parents use it already, and the students are seeing that, but the students are also seeing how the parents are using it responsibly. And it's not just like driving a car, but at the same time, you're not just going to give your keys to a 13-year-old and say, "You've seen me drive a car, now go for it." So it again, it goes to the parents in showing the students how they use it responsibly. Then it's up to us in the schools to show them how we expect them to use it
Um,
responsibly.
so obviously you're probably the person everybody comes to when they're trying to navigate some of this. What has that meant for you? What kinds of things are you noticing? Teachers are concerned, other teachers are concerned about, and what are they excited about too? I want to make sure we hit that as well.
Yeah. And funny enough, when I was listening to your conversation with Joe Carver, my knee-jerk thought was, okay, so in his school, was there a division in like the social sciences and the natural sciences? Because the natural sciences tend to have that inherent desire to use something new and tinker with it and put it through its paces. Whereas, and of course, this is blanket statement, but the humanities was like, nope, not going to use it at all. We want to be sure that they're thinking critically and it's their voice and so on and so forth. So we have had that where the teachers of the natural sciences are like, yeah, I've been using it and this is how I've been using it. So there's transparency with the students and how it's being used. Some students are wondering, well, wait a minute, if the teachers can use it, why can't we? And that's a valid question. But it's also incumbent on the teacher to tell them how they're using it and be honest with it, as we're expecting the students to be honest with it. As far as students coming to me, I mean, they come to me as like, wait a minute, can I use it here? And I was like, well, yeah, you're not writing your dissertation. You're asking it a question with which to find something out. Or, I see your work, but you want to modify it a little bit in a way and in a voice that's more indicative of what you think will be smarter. So let's look at it in that way. I get more questions from students than I do with teachers because for the teachers that want to use it are, you know, again, we're going through the guidelines and what will actually be within the school. So, there's a little blurb in our user manual, but that's being expanded on now that we are going through the integration at the different levels. So we will be extremely explicit in this is when we're going to use it. This is our intended use.
I want to hear about your computer science class, and how students are thinking about it, and if that's shifted in the last few years. But then, of course, like how how much of a role AI plays or doesn't play, and how you teach it.
Yeah, so in the AP computer science class, we use code.org as our platform. We don't use it in there because I really want them to be sure to understand how each line of code is going to influence another line of code. As I tell them, it's the perfect class if you like puzzles, if you like problem solving, if you can handle a little bit of frustration here and there, but it's a practical engineering class online. So there's no tactile result, but it's application slash project based. So they're moving the code, they're writing the code with which to get a product. Now, there is another class that I taught about applications of technology that was heavy into, well, wait, I don't know how we're going to do that. Let's look it up. And so the students literally, if it wasn't a practical application, yeah, we were like looking it up, saying, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? I've taught a Python class using Replit. And before we knew it, we were like, wait a minute, it's finishing our code for us. And we were like, yeah, turn that off. Because it wasn't fun. And that might be kind of a weird response to to the AI or not to use AI, but yeah, I mean, the students were not having fun because they weren't doing the problem solving. And that's where a lot of it comes in, is just that how are you going to use the artificial intelligence with which to do the job that you want it to do? Are you looking for the scapegoat? Easy way of doing something so you can do something else. Time is a big factor for everybody. And that's where a lot of the students that have used it, whether it's for a class or just for something else, they were curious about something. They didn't want to go through articles upon articles with which to figure something out. They put it in and get the condensed form. We did have a laughable moment at one point in time where a student called out another student, where it was a half-page article, and the student asked, "Can I put this in AI so I can get a summary?" And one student just literally turned around and looked at her and said, "Don't ask that again.
Yeah.
Take the time, read your half-page article, and do the summary yourself." And so we do have those funny times of students checking other students on, "Oh, well, I haven't read this. I don't know if I want to read it. So let me just put it in AI." And other students like, "Yeah, no, that's not its purpose."
I was going to ask about other pushback from students because, they're like, again, all students are not on the same page about like wanting to spend all their time using and learning about AI. What are you hearing from them? Are they concerned about the cognitive offloading? Like, where are they at in terms of processing their own criticism of the technology in your school?
Honestly, the only thing I've heard is just how it's being viewed as cheating. And that's really it. One of the things that we want to incorporate, and it's actually one of the things that we're kind of now scratching our heads about Gemini, is that there's no log that you can physically have to put within your sources cited. Because right now, literally what you'd have to do is take a screenshot, put it in, take a screenshot, put it in. And that's not an effective use of time. But because we are Google School and Gemini does have the literal guardrails of what it is that we're looking for within this first year of actively using it, you know, in the open, essentially, is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get the students to understand? It's going to be one of those things that within the teaching community, literally, it will be making those checkpoints and making sure that the students understands, like, yeah, this is what it is that we need you to do. But yeah, as far as the students go, it's literally just, I want to use it, but it's not being embraced right now. So I'm not sure if I should use it. Could you teach me to use it, please? Because I want to use it, because all these people are saying I need to know how to use it. We do have students that have literally been affected by the job market because of what artificial intelligence has done. And they've been able to um, morph their jobs into something else, but it's not exactly what it is that they had intended to do within this job. So they've either stayed and used artificial intelligence in a way that has changed their job, or they've gone somewhere else to get a different job. So right now, I guess that would be the other big thing. Not only is it, am I cheating with it, but the thing I'm most interested in doing, whether it's in college or after college, will it still be there because of artificial intelligence? And again, that's the big thing that I get to discuss. Oh yeah, I'm going to be teaching a class on artificial intelligence next year that got approved by the board and the student council and administration. So that's going to be interesting.
What is your vision for the course? I'd love to just hear and how it differs from the digital thinking course.
Yeah. So aside from the digital thinking course, this AI class will literally be discussing the advent of the computer. So where did it start, and then its transition through time up to now. And it will start off as a pretty much history of this thing that we call working technology. We'll be branching off into the different types of artificial intelligence. How is it used in the workforce? What has it done for the workforce? What do we hope it will do for the workforce? And then we'll be using a couple languages. Python, I do believe, is the primary language. that the course calls for with them to design their own artificial intelligence. And we'll then go from there and see what's out there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And that's why I was, my school will be buying a couple editions of your book because I told them, like, yeah, no, I'm going to be marking in mine, uh, taking notes so I can use it in class.
I got a chance to teach a AI in your life course to adult learners 2 summers ago, or last summer. Time goes by so quickly lately. It is fun to sit down and actually think through what the trajectory of the technology has been, as a way to help them understand can do in particular, because I think sometimes we just like think that it appeared out of nowhere, or it feels like that. But obviously there's a massive history that went into the development of the tech, and so it's nice to be able to break that down, see where it came from and where it might be going. So you've acknowledged multiple times that you're very lucky to get to teach this class with a lot of support. Obviously, you're a rare instance of this at K to 12 across the country. If you were to talk to a peer in a school district that didn't have the resources or the support for a course like this, what would be the most important topic for them to cover?
Actually, it's not that hard. It's communication. I mean, everything we do boils down to how you communicate. And even with technology, whether it's, searching something on a search engine or asking something through artificial intelligence, it's getting the question or the statement in a way that on the tail end or the response isn't necessarily what you were looking for, but it's what helps you progress to the next step. That is exactly what I would say to do. Uh, just like in the sciences or any relationship, if you're not communicating effectively, the idea isn't going to get across. We as teachers, educators, researchers go through that every day. Now, am I asking or presenting the material in a way that the student is thinking, or parent or companion or peer, that they can go to the next step based off of what it is that we had a dialogue about? So, yeah, communication.
Throughout the episode, Melvin made the case that technology use is never just about access. It is about communication and the habits students build while they're learning to navigate digital spaces. His insistence that schools still need to teach the basics, how to communicate clearly, how to read online environments, and how to treat AI as a sparring partner rather than a shortcut, pushes the conversation beyond policy and towards formation. Keep listening this season as we continue to explore the hard questions about technology, teaching, and what we want education to become. And pre-order my book for more on how to approach ethical concerns in education at ethicaledtech.org. Thanks for listening to Margin of Thought. If this episode gave you something to think about, subscribe, rate, and review us. Also, share it with someone who might be asking similar questions. You can find the show notes, transcripts, and my newsletter at preten.org. Until next time, keep making space for the questions that matter.